Now, it's early November. This is something different for me this year because I can't believe it still, and I'm not a big fan, but I'm looking forward to it though, as tomorrow is opening day of Minnesota gun season. It's right smack dab in the middle of the rut. And that's weird, you know, for us. I think that's November 7th. And so that's really different for me, especially coming from Michigan with a November 15th opener. That's the tail end of the rut. But like last year with Wisconsin, our opener was the 23rd of November, and that's well outside of the rut. And it explains a seasonal roller coaster from year to year of great deer hunting to poor deer hunting, because, you know, imagine these bucks by the 23rd of November in that case, or the 20th of November, they've been running hard for about a month, really hard. They've lost a lot of body weight, and even if does are coming into estrus, they have their limits. They can't just keep pushing it every single day like we're used to on November 7th, on November 2nd, on October 31st, or November 10th, or November 15th if you're in Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, southern Iowa, over into southern Illinois, southern Ohio, some of those areas where it happens a little bit later. And I'm sorry I didn't say your state, Arkansas, whatever it might be, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma. You know, those are pushed back a week or 10 days. But boy, we get to hunt tomorrow right smack dab in the rut, and that's going to be really interesting. But November, what a glorious month when it comes to deer hunting, whether it's the rut, whether it's your opener of gun season. And I like opening day of gun season, that tradition. As you know, I hunt the weather. So opening day of bow season, if it's on September 12th, September 19th here in Wisconsin, Minnesota, my hunts weren't towards until the end of September. I wait for the best weather and I go in and hunt. You know, opening day of bow's so long, I want to make sure I get the most out of my hunts and don't blow up my stands and get the most of my opportunity. I think September 28th was my first sit here in Minnesota on the new land, and the season opened on the 19th. Gun season, incredible opportunity, but depending on the strategy you have and when you're using that strategy for gun season, in this glorious month, your hunt can be over before it begins, depending how careful you are. And I want to make sure that from number 5 to number 1, these are some of my favorite gun season strategies, whether it's on public land or private land. I know if you follow these, they'll work for you. Number 5, dare to be different. And what I mean by that is a lot of gun hunters are serious deer hunters, but they're not serious deer hunters. And what I mean by that is they love the tradition of deer hunting. People get out. I want them in the woods. We need them in the woods. We need to count every gun hunter in our hunting ranks. And I gun hunt, I muzzleload hunt, shotgun hunt, rifle, whatever it might be, muzzleloader. And you know, that's a great thing, but a lot of gun hunters are just going about the motions. They're going out and having a good time. And on this channel, we talk about a lot of advanced strategies, you know, people that want to consistently shoot the best bucks in the neighborhood. In order to do that, you have to be a little different. If all your neighbors are riding ATVs, maybe you don't ride an ATV. If a lot of your neighbors are getting in right at daybreak, maybe don't do that. If your neighbors are driving deer on the 3rd day of the season and pushing their land, maybe don't do that. If all your neighbors are using headlamps. I was going in, I showed my buddy Mike, we were going in into a stand yesterday morning, and I showed him over to a ridge system about 500-600 yards away, and it's across the road over some houses. It goes down and then back up again. Last year on opening day, I could see someone finding their spot to sit with a headlamp, and I'm not kidding, you could have guided a plane with it. It was very bright. It was shining all over, and there were deer blowing between that hunter and myself, and deer running towards me. And I'm sure they saw that light, and you could hear it on a quiet morning, making a lot of noise. And that is more the common deer hunter. Nothing wrong with that, but dare to be different. Be that person that's the first person in the woods. Try to sneak in. Try to get to your stand before anybody else, and it'll pay big dividends. Be different than everyone else as far as the deer notice and your ability to sneak in and out of the land without spooking deer. Number 4, that revolves heavily around sight, scent, and sound. Are the deer patterning you more than you can pattern them? That's something that you apply to your land, your public land, preservation of your hunt, your private land, small private parcels. Hey, if you have 2,000 acres, 3,000 acres, you live in a fantasy land state, you don't even need to watch this, because the size of the land or the lack of hunting pressure in your state encompasses your mistake, but for your mistakes. But if you're hunting on public land and you're hunting on private land parcels, and I'm not even saying a 500 to 800 acre parcel is small, but they're still not large enough to encompass your mistakes. You take 3 ATVs out in the morning on a 700-acre parcel in a pretty high-pressure state, you're going to spook a lot of deer. Doesn't matter if it's 700 acres. Imagine if that's 70 acres or 17 acres. Big difference. So really make sure that you're getting on and off the property like a predator. And you think about it, November 15th, in Michigan, hallowed day of opening day gun season, that should be a day, and it doesn't matter if it's the 7th of November in Minnesota, whatever the date is this year in Wisconsin, it's the Saturday before Thanksgiving. That should be the most sacred, hollow, non-intrusive, low impact, low risk to the deer herd in the area where you hunt. And that's why we can even add this on here. Don't shoot does on opening day unless you already have a buck on the ground. If you're really going for bucks and that's what you want, then I had a client up north in Wisconsin. They shot 3 does one gun season, they shot 5 the next, and then wonder where the deer are the rest of the week. Well, they shot them. They shot those does. They disturbed the land, going and get 3 to 5 deer each opening day, and they made it so that would be the #1 bad strategy, worst strategy for hunting gun season is to shoot a bunch of does. Think about your ability to get on and off the property without spooking deer in all ways. Number 3, thick is awesome. Thick cover, high stem count cover. It seems like mature bucks gravitate to those areas in opening day gun season, then they don't move. A lot of times they get to those spots and they stay there, they bed down. It's pretty crazy how they'll go to a patch of cover that's 2 acres and they'll sit there all day, especially if they have some daytime browse, some woody shrub tips, briars, whatever it might be. They have enough food to browse on during the day. They'll stay in a very small area. They know what's going on. They hear all those guns. They hear ATVs. They hear people talking, dragging deer. It can be pretty. There can be a lot of commotion. Those are the gun seasons I'm used to. Unless I'm way out on public land somewhere, but you're still hearing distant shots. Most of the time on opening day of gun season, I'm using my bow. And the reason for that is because I'm hunting in a very thick location. That means the shots are close. And if that means I can only shoot 35 to 40 yards because of the lay of the land, then I like using my bow. It'd be fine if I shot him with a gun. I'm going to get burned one of these days, or a muzzleloader or something like that. But I like those close quarter situations where I can hunt with my bow. And the reason I'm doing that, again, it goes back to because it's thick cover. Number 2, we have some awesome spots to hunt around here that look over some cool food plots. You might have a really cool spot on public land where you're looking at a giant clear cut, it's hidden, maybe a swamp edge, a beaver pond where it meets some hardwoods, and there's some good briar regeneration. Maybe an area where a tornado went through or heavy winds, and you find that thicker cover on public land that's remote. I like hunting those food source areas, maybe a big oak flat somewhere, in the afternoon, evening, not the morning. A lot of people can't wait to go sit in their blinds, their pop-up blind, their redneck, whatever it might be, their homemade blind. They want to go right out to there and sit all day in some comfort. And we have a couple of those that we can hunt in some close quarter situations. One Mike and I are hunting tomorrow is over a water hole, and it's in a cruising area. That's different. We haven't even hunted that this year. It's specifically made for either close quarter bow hunting or gun hunting, and it's a blind, actually, redneck blind. So that's one thing, but when you're hunting a food sources are made for evening. A lot of people are going into those food sources in the morning. They're getting in their blinds. They're spooking the deer off the food plots, off the food sources, getting into that location, thinking, well, there's lots of rubs and scrapes here and getting lots of trail cam photos, but you're ruining the hunt before you start it, because it doesn't only ruin the hunt for that morning because those deer are going back to bedding areas and looking for thick cover, but they're not going to come out into that food plot if you just spooked them off that morning, especially when guns are going off and people are in the woods. Really focus on food in the evening, not in the morning. Focus on bedding areas in the morning, that thick cover, and that's really important to remember. If you can't sit in that blind in a bedding area somewhere in the morning, just sit in that bedding area, and whether you have a blind there, a stand, or cruising area, just think about staying there all day if you can't get out safely. We have a lot of stands. When you hunted the property for 12 years in Wisconsin, we had some blinds and stands in there where we'd talk about, the 3 of us that hunted that for gun season. If you get into that stand location on opening day of gun season, you have to stay all day, because there's deer bedded around you. If you get out, you're going to spook deer. You're ruining the entire parcel, and you're better off hunting a bedding area all day than trying to move out to a good food source evening stand. It's all about preservation. Again, not letting the deer see you, hear you, or smell you. And number 1, really critical. This is how I hunt a lot. You have neighboring pressure right here. You have food source right here. You have some thick bedding cover in here. Then if the wind's blowing this way, I'm getting into this location. If it's blowing this way, I'm getting into this location. And what you're trying to do is, if your access point is here, I'm going all the way around to get into that thick cover area around my food source. I'm taking advantage of not only deer leaving the food in a location like this. So they're walking out of here and they're going back to their bedding area. A lot of times if the wind's coming this way, they're coming into this side. So I'm getting to that tight quarter situation, but at the same time I'm considering where my neighbor's at. Their access is here, coming into this location, whatever it might be. So I'm trying to focus on those thick bedding areas that not only I can take advantage of because the movements on my own land or my own food source to bedding movement that I've discovered on public land, but I'm considering where that really strong access is on my neighbor's land or where people are coming into public land, and I'm getting in between that movement. When I hunt out on the UP in Michigan, I don't know if I'll get there this year, I'm hoping, but I like going into swamps and funnels where I'm walking around the locations. I'm not walking through several bait piles of people and getting there early and walking through bait piles on public land to get into that spot. I'm coming into a side entrance or a back door where I can go the long ways in, go 45 minutes and loop into a spot where I'm putting myself in position between a lot of bait piles, a lot of ATV access, and I'm sitting back in those thick areas and I'm shooting a really nice buck at 10 in the morning or 1 in the afternoon because I'm in one of those true locations where it's thick. Deer didn't know that I entered. I'm trying to be different and hunt different than everybody else, and I'm putting myself in a position where I can actually get into location without spooking deer in the way in. I'm especially not hunting food sources in that way. In fact, the food sources that time of the year in the UP in Michigan are bait piles. I'm going well around those, and those people might see deer in the afternoon, evening, but I'm getting into those middle areas waiting for the deer to come me. It's almost like during gun season, you have to hunt people as much as you're hunting deer. I like to know where my neighbors are, not because I have fear of them shooting me or that we're going to shoot towards them or that kind of thing. I want to know my neighbors are hunting on opening day of gun season because I want to know their access route, their blind locations, because that's going to signify most of the time where deer are coming from my neighbors. So if I use my own land, and this is the one time you can do that. You know, it doesn't happen during the rut typically, during the early season, October lull, late season, but you can put yourself in a position where not only are you paying attention to your own food source bedding movement, whether it's discovered on public land or created on private land, but you're taking advantage of your neighbors, whether on public land or private land, and getting yourself into that perfect gun season spot. And that's my #1 gun season strategy. Without knowing anything else, when I'm hunting on in Pennsylvania, I'm going into a low deer access, into an area where I don't expect a lot of deer because I'm going up a gorge and there's not a lot of deer in that location. Then I'm popping up the safe side of a ridge system where I don't expect as many deer because it's open and big hardwoods, and then I'm putting myself that last 100 yards into a spot where I feel that deer are transitioning into an X movement, and I'm going way around to get there. It's a lot easier just going along the top of the ridge systems. I go way up and into a hollow, back up around. And I could probably save myself a half-hour walk out of an hour and 15-minute walk in. But again, I'm getting into a position where not only do I like the movement because of what I've discovered, but I'm taking advantage of other people, whether it's on private land or public land around me. Try it this season. Most of all, I hope you have a successful gun season, but most importantly, that you have a safe gun season. Have a great hunt this year, and I look forward to hearing about the comments below. It's a glorious time of the year. We're going to be out in the woods with some guns tomorrow, and Diane with her new gun, she's excited, and we're going to have a fun time, and I hope you do too. Well, if you made it to the end of this video, you're obviously interested in whitetail habitat solutions, what I have to teach, and you will love my new web class series. The first one is how to design your whitetail property. It's out now. The link is in the description. I invite you to check it out. It's on my website. Can't wait to hear about it.